Of the Old Testament, the first truly preeminent character in it is Moses. There are a few characters that come before him. There's Noah, who's a short story. Abraham, who actually, as I'll tell you later, doesn't actually contribute that much to the religious beliefs of the Bible. There's, Adam and Eve and things like that. But Moses, his story goes on for quite a ways, goes through quite a number of books, and he really is the first really, truly prominent character. He basically invents Judaism. So anyway, he goes through these things, does all various things, and this is how I have summarized his ethical worth. As I said in an earlier video, when I'm reading through this version of the Bible that I wrote, and when each character comes and leaves the story, I actually give you a tally of everything they did and said that would have affected a person now or later in their lives. So here are my thoughts on Moses. He eventually dies and is buried in a mysterious place. No one has ever found his grave. That's more than likely because he's mythical, but that being taken. So, he's dead. As far as the human ethics of this religious founding father goes, if you rate him by sheer numbers, not percentages, because I give a percentage, a total number of times he does that something, and then a percentage of good and bad based on their whole. Moses is the third most benevolent character in the Bible, and the best in the Old Testament. Of his 3,788 edicts, actions, and beliefs, his main positive attributes are that he created 100 fair and good rules. Although he only encouraged generosity 7 times, and said to love people a mere 3 times. However, these only make up 3% of his interhuman edicts and actions. On the flip side, he was also a homicidal maniac on various levels, which coincidentally makes him the Bible's most abominable human. In addition to encouraging the murder of 3,000 of his own followers at Mount Sinai for worshiping a golden calf, and 3 more at other times, he committed 67 acts of citywide genocide, which could, by some estimates, equal almost 3 million people. He committed 63 mass filicides, so it was 67 genocides, 63 citywide mass filicides, killing of children, and 2 mass murders. He ordered 2 mass rapes, 1 of virgins, supported slavery or servitude 9 times, threatened deadly fates for worshiping other gods, idolatry, 133 times, which is qualified as an evil thing in my book, and recommended execution for other infractions, which are death threats, 68 times. He was a lying, sexist child abuser who manipulated the gullible with his endless hearsay, committed fraud, and spent a lifetime convincing impressionable and uneducated people that earthly disasters and doom would befall them for idolatry, all in order to make them believers in a religion that he personally made up the rules for. In all, he recommended or did 3,500 evil and unethical things, which is 92.4% of his total. To top that off, he was an unparalleled hypocrite towards his own rules 32 times, stated the existence of witches, wizards, and dragons 10 times, and made 135 preposterous and ridiculous claims, which is 3.8% of his total. For what this psychopath subjected them to, the Hebrews, not to mention the neighboring countries, should have thrown a big party, pissed on his corpse, and said good riddance. Speaking of psychopaths, a point frequently raised in debates about, in religious debates with, non-believers and, and theists, about the Hebrews' religiously motivated conquests is that the atrocities carried out by the non-religious dictators of the 20th century were far worse, with staggering body counts accumulated by Joseph Stalin and Adolf Hitler. Joseph Stalin murdered about 10 million Russians, and Adolf Hitler 12 million non-combatants. Even though around 3 million deaths from these genocides of Moses is smaller, it isn't when compared with each era's world population. There were about 35 million people alive in 1200 BC and 2.3 billion during World War II. Dividing their murders by these populations, Hitler killed 0.5% of the world's populace, Stalin 0.4%, little less, while Moses killed 8.6%. This shows that proportional to the total number of people living in their times, Moses murdered almost 10 times more humans than Hitler and Stalin combined. If you consider the genocidal Pol Pot, who massacred 1.7 million Cambodians, which was 0.04% of the 4 billion alive in 1975, Moses proportionally slaughtered 215 times more people than him.